Hello, you multi. Meticulous macerated molecules. Yeah, that's what you are, folks. And welcome to Ralphie.com, well, formerly Ralphie.com. It's the Whiskey Bothy now, due to Google mixing up the porridge again. Thank you to Willem Killian for providing that malt mention, introducing Ralphie Review 1046 extras, in which I'm going to tell you Sam's story. You'll find it very interesting, so before we go any further, top up your glass of whiskey or whatever you're drinking, settle down, make sure you're not going to get distracted, because this is a bedside thriller type story of significant ramifications. Right, big word, ramifications. Just do a Google search for it. And Sam is one of my Patreon channel subscribers and has had a bit of a situation. And I'm going to introduce Sam to you, because I don't want you to be in Sam's situation. Fortunately, Sam knows whiskey people online. Otherwise, it could have been so much worse for him. But his story needs to be told, and I am going to tell it. Because when it comes to protecting the interests of the whiskey drinkers around the world, this is not happening from within the Scotch whisky industry. And therefore, it needs to be the collective online whisky community on the internet which says something and does something to try and protect consumers from what is potentially, allegedly, probably one of the biggest generational scandals to rock the whisky industry that we have ever seen. And I'm not being dramatic here. I'm being totally serious. I'll read out Sam's introduction message to me. From time to time, I get emails from a whisky investment company, despite having unsubscribed from them many times. Their latest pitch is that the rarest and most exclusive, and therefore the best of the best, is red wine matured whisky. Their evidence being that someone who buys the red wine casks can expect future prices of up to £15,000. Whoa! A bottle. And it is to point to the latest release coming from that renowned distillery, Glenmorangie, crafted by Professor Jill Bumsden. I don't think that's his name. Who else? Question mark. Of a set of just 3 bottles of wine matured whisky for, wait for it, hold on to your seat, don't spill your whisky in your glass now, malt mates, £7,740. I think Glenmorangie also belongs on the list of abomination Glen something or others, along with their shameless corporate parent and master distiller. The shameless corporate parent being LVMH, that's Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, which is a luxury brand producer that used to have luxury status, but these days supplies overpriced goods for people who want to feel rich and have poor taste. To which I respond to Sam's inquiry. A very interesting story there, and I would like to make it a feature as an extras with your permission. So, Sam has provided me with a statement, and I'm going to read it out to you. Please listen carefully to this, because if you know anybody Anybody at all. And this is highly likely to be affecting people who don't know a lot about whisky. But they could find themselves potentially, possibly, allegedly, in very serious financial trouble, out of which there will be no compensation, no comeback, and no justice. That's the reality of it. So I'm going to read out Sam's statement. A well-meaning relative signed me up a couple of years ago to the mailing list of a cask investment firm based in the City of London. I shall not name the firm in question. The founders were city boys in finance who moved into luxury tangibles including art, gold, watches and land, and now focus on high-end alcohol, bottles, as well as their core business in casks. When I started getting their newsletter, I told them I had no interest and tried to unsubscribe from their list, but still the newsletter came. The latest was all about red wine casks. They explained that their target customers, are victims, right? That's me saying that. I'll stick to the script here. That bourbon casks and hence whisky matured in them are merely ordinary. The silver standard, accounting for 90% of whisky production. Sherry casks are superior, producing 9% of whisky, the gold standard of casks. The remaining 1% are exotic and therefore the most desirable, including tequila, rum, port, and whatever. But the tiny subset is that red wine casks are the best of the best, the platinum standard. These therefore are used, they say, to produce the very best and therefore most expensive and desirable whiskies, and they cite as evidence the advertised but not yet released Pursuit of Passion collection of 3 red wine matured bottles from Glenmorangie, personally crafted, of course, by Dr. Bill Lumsden, who also collaborates on whisky creation with the renowned whisky expert Beyoncé. I've heard that name before. Back to the script. The 3 bottles will be priced at £7,740. They come in a pretty wooden box and will be available from the Glenmorangie boutique at London Heathrow Airport. The recent sabbatical ribbing by the Whisky Sponge, which I recommend you Google Whisky Sponge and read the article. It's well earned. Back to the script. Of LVMH Head of Whisky Creation is only a little more extreme than this reality. The newsletter carries on with a fact sheet detailing a dozen or so particular examples of top-end wine chateau and other producers, stating as facts the impact that these specific casks have on whisky maturing in them, correlating the quality, desirability and price of the whisky produced with the prestigious and price of the original wines, including as examples whisky aged in Chateau Latour barrels inherits deep flavours of dark fruit, leather and hints of spice. Whisky aged in Romanée-Conti barrels gains elegance with flavours of red berries, floral notes and subtle spices. The barrels contribute to a whisky that is refined, complex and exceptionally smooth. I've got to go on. Thanks, Sam. In the case of each barrel type, they give the expected price range per bottle, such as $11,600 to $15,500 for Romanée-Conti. This actually means, I think, the prices of great old vintages of the wines themselves. But it could be taken as claimed projections for the future whiskies. In any case, it is a clear pitch that the value of such cask investments are directly related to the prestige of the wine brands. It is interesting to contrast this with the analysis of that of Serge Valentin, that's whiskyfun.com, great channel, highly recommended, back to the script, which Adrian quoted in Ralphie's 1043 Extras a couple of weeks ago. This was in a comment. I would like to emphasise that there is a major difference between casks used for cognac, rum, sherry, Madeira, etc., and those used for table wine, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Barolo, Shiraz, etc. In the former cases, the previous liquids have matured in the casks, in brackets, except for the case of simple seasoning, and the aromas are therefore muted and matured to varying degrees. In contrast, casks used for table wine have only held young wines which do not mature, at least not fully, in the casks. Far from it. The aromas are therefore invariably, got it there, more vegetable, rustic and unfinished. For instance, a very good Bordeaux wine will have spent 2 years in a cask and then 15 years in the bottle to reach maturity, depending on the vintages. If you use an ex-Bordeaux cask, you are therefore flavouring the whisky with an immature wine, hence the strong notes of pepper, just as an example. In other words, the beneficial impact of red wine casks on whisky does not correlate in the slightest to the quality of the wine, for sound chemistry reasons. And again, this is quoting Serge Valentin, who really knows his stuff. He is a real expert, not just in whisky but in wines, and does not correlate slightest with the quality of the wine for sound chemistry reasons. In my own experience, many red wine finished or matured whiskies are distinctly dodgy, including ones which allegedly, for example, Chateau Lafite Rothschild, and those that are good because the distilleries do it right, such as Port Charlotte MRCs, PMCs, etc., and the humble yet worthy Lecheik Sinclair Rioja, which in my opinion is a superb wine cask matured whisky at a very, very affordable £45 a bottle. Back to the script. So who do we trust? Lecheik, Bruichladdich, Serge Valentin and Ralphie? Or those city boys seeking to separate us from our money? Minimum investment, £5,000, by the way. I had to share this with you because this statement very accurately, completely dismantles what is, in my opinion, an absolute disingenuous fiddle being perpetrated against the gullible and the uninformed. Unfortunately, maltmates, there are many of these people out there. Far too many. But the problem is, the bigger problem is, that it doesn't matter if it's whisky or adulterated gold cut with silver, which is doing the rounds, by the way, you better know it, or fake Swiss watches, or the absolute utter wine racket which was perpetuated in the 1990s and very nicely articulated in a book which you should be reading, maltmates, called The Billionaire's Vinegar. Look it up online, you'll find it very quickly. I'll re-say that again so you know what you're looking for. The Billionaire's Vinegar. Superb book. What's happening to whisky happened to wine 20 years ago. It's being rifled. And let's get back to the City of London link. I have a friend, lovely guy, very intelligent, who worked for decades in and around the City of London. He doesn't say too much about his job. And he, after a few whiskies, described it, to my shock, I have to say, my incredulous shock, as probably the most organised criminal network on the planet. Oh, his opinion, not mine, by the way, just for clarity. If you ever visit the City of London, the Square Mile, you'll know you've arrived because there's bollards outside of it, lines the entire perimeter of the City of London. They are hexagonal, black, red and white. The colours are occult. When you go into the City of London, you'll find it very different from the rest of London. It is immaculate. It oozes its wealth. And the details of what you need to know, you will find in the architecture of the buildings. I have a final concluding statement from Sam, which I'm going to round off this video. Sam says, "Thanks for the plug for next week's extras." You're welcome, Sam. True, the uninvited newsletters are harassing, but I can dismiss them and even be amused by the total, I can't say that word, Sam, I can't say that word. I might get cancelled for saying that word. They are talking, but my main reaction is to be shocked at how these, his opinion not mine, cowboy cask traders think they can get away with it. I even feel some sympathy for the gullible rich people who know nothing about whiskey and are looking for some luxury tangibles to invest quite large sums in, and maybe regarding these advisors with smart websites and city addresses as experts. They are certainly not going to come across the warnings from you, and by the way, Sam is meaning me on a specific, experienced, vintage whiskey review channel. Thank you, Sam, for the compliment. These people, it doesn't matter what the luxury item is, what the City of London traders are trading in. It can be any commodity. It could be pebbles off the moon. It could be rare Martian meteorites. It could be futures in Mars exploration programs. It could be anything. Anything that triggers so that these gullible dupe suckers can be pumped for as much as they can. And these people, they will harass, because, in my opinion, they're above the law. They're not accountable, they're not answerable. What concerns me, Sam, what concerns all of us, is the silence, the sheer silence coming out of the collective Scotch whisky industry. It's far too quiet. And you know, because it's on record, on my Patreon channel, that I sent a collective report to the Scotch Whisky Association to try and give them advice and feedback from the online community, and when I sent it by email, so it's evidence, it was never even acknowledged. That is very, very telling. So when this becomes a scandal, and the same legacy media newspapers who were promoting the advertisements for these scams, alleged scams, possible maybe scams, the very same legacy media will have the front page blaring headlines that Scotch whisky scandal, disaster, people looking for compensation, and then the distilleries that are connected with this will have lawyers from left, right and centre bringing out civil actions and claims. And who's going to pay for all that, malt mates? Are we going to pay for it because we buy the whisky? Probably. There are a few legitimate cask investment companies. If I was in their position, I would be cashing out now and getting as much of a distance away from this as possible. When it blows, it will blow badly. You're dealing with the City of London. They are enormously powerful. Their operatives, including these cask investment consultants, who are affiliated to the City of London, are enormously privileged and empowered to do what they do. And when comes the weekend and they're in the style bars in Kensington, if you know your London scene, they're down Kensington and Chelsea, and the style bars, passing round white powders and bottles of Moet and Chandon, or Bollinger. They tend to go for Bollinger. They will be laughing. They'll be laughing all the way to the Cayman Islands and beyond, because they are enormously powered to do what they do. There's no regulation, in my opinion. No regulation. It is what it is. I know that you won't be stung, because see you're a malt mate. You're in Sam's position. You know enough about whisky not to be fooled by this BS. But some people that you know will be turning to you to brag and enthuse about how they've invested in these rare wine cask matured whiskies that are going to be worth 15, possibly £20,000 a bottle, £50,000 a bottle. At which point, if you like them enough, you're going to try and help them out. But this is bad for Scotch whisky's reputation. Seriously bad. And I think it's a very real problem that action is not being publicly and visibly taken from within the whisky industry to try and deflect the potential catastrophic fallout of a major global fake investment, disingenuine investment situation for which action could have been taken. Because those who are seeking compensation will certainly try and use that in evidence in a civil action. Thanks, Sam. I hope you find this interesting and informative. I would conclude by saying I once got to try Glenmorangie Chateau Margaux matured whisky, 24 years old I think it was. And it was pish. Absolute pish. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because see, when wine casks are emptied, the previous contents of the wine is at 14%. As soon as it's out in the sunlight, in a hot environment, baking away for a couple of weeks, the alcohol level drops and the bacteria start to multiply inside the cask because the alcohol is no longer there to inhibit it, and they sour the cask because of the residual sugars that have impregnated into the wood. And a sour cask never, ever, ever makes for good whisky. It makes for pish. Bye.